The book that you would require for this course also is the book by the good Professor Abraham Anson, Essentials of Strategic Management, published in 2023. I indicate that you should get in touch with me, and I would forward the number of the course rep for Professor to you. Then you can liaise with him in getting the book, because the book is a fundamental component of understanding the course. It is the basis for which all this knowledge is structured, so that should you want more flesh to the knowledge you gained or a deeper understanding, it is that book that you would want to rely on. Now, having said that, again, there are other articles that you could read for your own understanding. Okay, class participation is important. And so here we are, strategic management. Colleagues, do you have any preliminary thoughts or opinion on the course outline? Otherwise, we'll zoom into the first part. Today, we are considering 3 parts of the conversation. We'll go to the first part. Any questions, you may unmute, or comments or reactions, you may unmute and ask. All right, it appears there is none. So if I can be heard, we'll zoom into the parts. Strategic management. The overview of strategic management. At the end of the course, our target is to understand what strategic management is and consider its stages. Then we'll look at some terms as it relates to strategic planning, strategic change, strategic decisions, amongst others. These are terms that you would come into contact with whilst we deal with strategic management. So you want to lace your boots as you delve into the discussion. So for the last time, can I be heard loud and clear? Then I proceed into the meat of the matter.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Doc.
Most grateful, and Abbas. Okay. So now let's recognize that once a business is set up, the goal often is to meet the bottom line. And in our case, when we say bottom line, we want to refer to profit. Now, if profit is the mainstay of every business, then the conversations around how to make sustainable profits is crucial. Now, it is not new to us that in the space of business, given that the forces of demand and supply are always at play, there will be competition. And so, in ensuring that a business succeeds over and above his competitors, then there's an avenue now to rethink and remodel how we look at management to ensure that management, as we would have it, is tackling the core fundamental issues in the organization to be able to have a clear roadmap as to how to outcompete your competitors and stay in the market. No business is there that is operating within the space with an intention to make profits who will let go of the concept of strategic management. Because what we know is that management Maybe the first stage of ensuring that you regroup and group things in the organization. You plan, organize, direct, and control things in the organization at a basic level. But to ensure that you are managing strategically, it requires more. And the literature invites us to know that strategic management is the art and science of doing three key things. First, formulating, implementing as the second, and thirdly, evaluating cross-functional decisions that enable an organization to achieve its objectives. Again, it is the art and the science of first formulating, second implementing, and evaluating cross-functional decisions that enable an organization to achieve its objectives. It is an art and a science. There's a roadmap which you have to follow. And therefore, when we structure every business and we administer such a roadmap, the tendency is that it should gain the same outcome as our business. That is the scientific aspect of it, that it has a methodology that must be strictly followed for a desirable outcome. It is an art also because the one who is prosecuting the agenda of strategic management must ensure that it takes into consideration other emotive levels of reasoning to ensure that it's not only stuck to the black letter of the blueprints towards achieving the goal of the organization, but also engages in an emotive understanding of the issues, how to deal with human beings, how to hold conversations, how to negotiate, to ensure that at the end of the day, you achieve the objectives of the organization. May I state that strategic management entails achievement of the long-term purpose of the organization. If your business is opening today and seeking to shut down in a month's time, you don't need strategic management. You only need strategic management when the business is going to operate ad infinitum. In other words, when accountants say that a business is a going concern, they mean that those who even engage to start up the business want to see the business survive after they are long gone. And indeed, there are businesses that have operated for more than 100 years. There can be no guarantee that the owners or founders, as it were, are alive in the same space. There are businesses that are 2 centuries old, 3 centuries old. I'm here to see a human being who is 3 centuries old. But once a business is formed, because of the whole idea of it going into the unforeseeable future, you need strategic management to achieve those long-term objectives to make you very firm in the market. I intimated that there are 3 things you need to consider in ensuring that you are managing strategically. That first, you need to formulate the strategy. Second, you need to implement the strategy that you have formulated. Definitely, if everything is on paper, it would not have legs to walk. The action stage, as we would later find out, is the implementation stage. And finally, the evaluation stage. Of course, whereas the company would operate into the foreseeable future, it is also clear to us that the company would have a financial year. So at each time, at each level, you would want to take stock to see how far you have gone in implementing the formula that is leading you to outcompete your competitors. So these 3 things are crucial when it comes to strategy. Now, in formulating the strategy, something which we'll look at in other topics quite soon, You need to now concern yourself about developing a mission and a vision for the organization. And we'll see how those are crafted in a bit. But in formulating, you don't sit in your room and say, no, you want this business to become ABC. No. You would have to ensure that having set a vision and a mission, you look at how the external and internal actors interplay. Most founders may have good ideas, but they will be sabotaged because of the kind of employees they may have. So that at the formulating stage, you are considering all of these to ensure that your objectives are met, because you have both an eye outside the organization, looking at what competitors are doing or not doing, and also having an eye in the organization, looking at what employees, your production schedule, and all are engaged in, so that you are always sure that you are giving the best output possible at the end of the day. Now, in formulating the strategy, you need to decide what business you want to enter. It may be that you have an existing business already. But like Ghana, in sometime in 2008, is it? We had an oil find. So we had oil already, but now we had it in commercial quantities. So as a business, you are trading in some other product and you wish to take the advantage to now proceed into oil and gas dealings. You have to be firm in understanding that this is a new business area, and therefore you need a lot of understanding to venture into it. Or perhaps while you enter into the oil and gas space, what you were doing earlier, would you want to maintain it or abandon it? Those are the key decisions you are taking at this part. You would want to ensure that your share stock is such that as founders, you don't end up losing your business through hostile takeover. And by hostile takeover, we mean persons insidiously coming in to buy shares in the organization. And before long, they take over the management of the organization. And at the end of the day, take over the operations of the organization. I had the opportunity of acting as an advisor on a board of the company. They needed a lawyer, and I had to submit my services. And these are young people. The company is still in operation. These are young people who are trying to start up a business, and they seek to purchase for themselves in their own business 50 CD shares, 50 CD shares. So they had engaged me because there's an investor who is coming in and wants to be part of the shareholding, and is bringing about 500,000 CDs. They were so elated. Wow, they are happy now. There's someone who believes in our project and therefore is bringing 500,000 CDs into the business. Remember that they had 50 CD shares each. Well, they consulted me because the gentleman who was coming in told them that with the 500,000 CDs, he wishes to become a shareholder of the organization. And they were asking me, in fact, they were happy already, but they were asking me to draft the agreement for them. Now, to their mind, they thought that the investor was bringing in money, and at the end of the day, we'll share profits together, enjoy the fruits of their labor, and indeed, they'll use that money to revamp operations in the organization. That was their view. and that I should come and draft that process. So I just called. I had the opportunity to call the investor. I asked him, "You are bringing 500,000 Ghana cedis. What do you want?" And as a lawyer, we are bold enough to ask you, "What do you want?" He hesitated for a while, but obviously, he said, "Okay, he wants to be a shareholder." So unknown to the colleagues, the two gentlemen, this is an investor, an angel investor, as we call them, who has gone to the Registrar General Department and is able to secure for himself the company's details and is aware of how much shares they have. A paltry 50 cedis each. And he's bringing 500,000 Ghana cedis to become a shareholder. What do you think will happen? Before long, he will take over the organization. So I told him that, look, we want it as a loan. We don't want it as a shareholding. As for the shares, you can give us, we can give you some 500 CD shares. But the huge amount, we want it as a loan, the debenture, as we call it in business. So today we've not heard from him again. The point I'm making is that some people enter into the organization knowing very well that the organization has prospects and knowing again that they may be either oblivious of how businesses and shareholding structures are, coming to invest money in the nature of shares, and they populate the business in a way that before long, they have taken over the business and they start running the affairs of the business. If you are in Ghana for a long time, there are a lot of businesses that have been taken over. And people come on TV sets and they start screaming and shouting that they own the business. And when this angel investor invested into the business, before long, he sacked them from the organization they founded themselves. And I'm like, why not? You do not know. You cannot tell. Because if you are bringing someone in as an investor, be sure of what we call hostile takeover. Remember that the business must go into the foreseeable future and you would wish to benefit from that business. So as a strategic manager, you are concerned about how much shares they are bringing. If you are in an organization where a new person is joining and bringing in shares, huge amounts of shares, don't be happy. You rather take it as a loan. If you take it as a shareholding, by morning he has taken over the organization for you. This is free legal advice, but I'll leave it at that. So a strategic manager would want to be careful to avoid hostile takeover. Like I said, 3 stages: formulation, implementation, and evaluation. Once you have done your formulation by formulating a vision and mission and looking in the external and internal environment to ensure that things align, you now move into your implementation, what we call the action stage. Here, you are engaging with the setting of annual objectives. What do we do in the first year? What do we do in the next 5 years? Remember, strategic management is towards a long-term goal. You develop policies that will aid you in achieving such a goal. Now you're thinking of your employees. You want to know how to motivate employees. Some employees in the organization don't care about how much you pay them. All they want is for you to mention their names when they do something right. So when they come to work early, they prefer that you stand in front of the workstation and say, "Oh, look, Kojo came to work early, clap for him." That's what they prefer. You need to know and interrogate what motivates your employees to be able to implement the core strategies that will let you meet a long-term goal. Because your failure to motivate the very key resource of an organization, which is the human resource, will be a failure on your part, and it will risk you not getting your long-term objective. And indeed, as it relates to other resources, you would want to know how to allocate them. Like I indicated, this stage is the action stage. And so you need a careful hand to be able to maneuver to ensure that at the end of the day, every strategy that is being implemented is something that will yield a specific purpose. Look, like Ghana, our problem is implementation, both in law and in fact. Pre-SHS is a good idea, is it not? It is. It has always been. But the implementation has been so unfair, unrealistic, and has dovetailed into making students in the secondary schools suffer unduly because of failed implementation processes. To that end, it is not lost on us to state quite forcefully that the implementation stage requires a lot of tact, and it is the most difficult stage. Look, joining the code switch program is a decision you have formulated and taking steps to start the implementation. But coming to class in pursuit of that, Saturdays and Sundays, is a difficult and daunting task. Sometimes you wonder, Sundays that you need to meet with the family and take some wache and jollof rice and fried rice. And the men will also take some beer if they are not minded to, or some Coca-Cola if they wish to. But they forfeit all of that and come and join a class on strategy that will last for 4 hours of their lives on a Sunday and a Saturday. If implementation is not difficult, everyone else would have become successful. Implementation is the most difficult aspect. So it's quite easy to say, oh, I want to get this degree. Fair enough. You have said it. Walk the talk and let's see. That's the implementation stage. I recall it was 10 years ago that I thought to become a PhD holder. 10 years ago. You have to walk the talk up until now before you can get it. Each day counts. So each day you come to class, it's an addition to the view that you would wish to achieve the purpose that you have formulated in the past, which is to come to the course, each day listen, do assignments, participate, and get your best grades that will propel you to the next stage. The most difficult stage is the action stage. And somehow, you may implement with good intentions, but it may become flawed. There's this saying that even the way to hell is paved with good intentions. Look, you can have a good plan. And in fact, you can be implementing everything according to plan, but it will still fail woefully. I know of students who implement what they have planned. Okay, they wish to get a first class. They come to every class. They join group discussions. They learn at the night at the peril of their lives. And they still don't make it. So the view that implementation stage is the most difficult stage is multifaceted. It may be that you're implementing wrongly, or you're still implementing rightly, but your results are so outrageously bad that it appears that whatever you do about this, you cannot just achieve it. As it indicates in the realms of business also, you may implement a strategy which will fail woefully. I refer you to, is it Glow? When Glow, telecommunication network, the telecommunication industry, when Glow came to Ghana, Glow, a very big telecommunication player, they had their formulation. They wanted to compete and, in fact, outcompete MTN. Did they succeed? We're even finding it difficult mentioning their names nowadays. They had a good plan, but a failed implementation effort. It woefully failed. So this stage is quite crucial, that it's important you deal with it with strong muscle. And indeed, what augments the implementation stage is the evaluation stage. For the evaluation stage, you are doing just three things. You want to ask yourself, what objectives did I formulate? Second, what are the actual results I'm getting as it relates to my current performance? Third, when I compare the actual performance to the ones that I formulated, is there any deviation? If there's a deviation to the negative, you need a lot of work to do. If you achieved it, hooray. If you failed at it, corrective action. If you achieved it, hooray. However, if you surpass it, then you need to adjust your efforts to ensure that you do more of it. So remember that these three things are the benchmarks of strategic management: strategy formulation, strategy implementation, and strategy evaluation. These three things forms the fabric of what strategic management is. Now let's, as I had indicated in the introduction, look at some of the concepts that we'll be dealing with. In strategic management, there's a concept like strategic planning. And strategic planning is clearly the blueprint. And the researchers say the advanced sequencing of strategic management decisions. So anytime you have a strategy, your ability to put that strategy as a blueprint, as a roadmap toward the achievement of long-term objectives is what we call strategic planning. You must have a plan. It cannot just be wishful thinking. And the goal is long-term. So your plan must be elaborate in a way that it can achieve long-term results. The plan must have a defined strategy. And also must have room for review. There are some plans that when you are stuck with will not work. And so you need a hot review, like auditors will determine, a hot review of your plans to ensure that you are always concerned or comfortable about achieving the long-term purpose. Indeed, when it comes to strategic planning, you still need to consider your internal and external resources. You don't just plan in vacuum or in a vacuum. You need to ensure that your considerations of the environment, both external and internal, are within your scope. What are the performance indicators that you would wish persons in the organization to have? What are your monitoring plans? They must all be included in the strategic plan, because remember that strategic planning is an imperative. But this is the time where you come in. Given all the things you have said about strategic planning, and indeed people state, and I agree, that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. There are still some persons or firms that do not want to undertake strategic planning, despite the good we have spoken about. Some firms don't wish to plan. They think that planning is much ado about nothing. The question before you, and I did say three responses, is why do you think that despite the good of strategic planning, some firms still will not want to plan? The floor is open. Yes, anyone at all? Let's do that quickly. Let's do that quickly. Why would firms ignore planning? Though planning, by that strategic planning, is as crucial.
Yeah.
Yes, please proceed.
Um, so I think in life itself, what we see is that sometimes it's like in doing something, maybe along the line what will be involved and what is needed and all that. So wasting time of first of all planning and here and there, all that. Sometimes you get discouraged. You say, when I'm doing it, I will know what will be needed, what I will do, and so on. So you ignore the initial planning, which is very important. That is one thing also happens in our life activities.
Thank you very much. That's true. Thank you, Emmanuel.
Yes, sir.
Right. You may mute and show. Yes. Okay. Right. Great. You've done what is required. Emmanuel tells us clearly that sometimes you feel you know your bends and your curves. You know what will happen. So why sit down and write? It's a waste of time anyway. That's the view he shares, and I agree entirely that would discourage people from planning. Two other observations. Planning, as crucial as it is, why do people escape it? Yes. Let's do that quickly. Why do people escape it?
Sir,
Yes, Poma.
I can also say that because of uncertainties, things do change a lot. And if I plan to do as a business, if I plan to do something in this way, then the next moment there are changes. It's just like wasting of time. So I think people fail to plan because of uncertainties as a result of the changing environment that we have.
Excellent, Poma. Great submission. Things change. We're here, and in 2019 we had COVID-19. In fact, it got to Ghana in 2020 at its high scale. Whatever plans you had, and may I state that COVID-19 has changed the world's outlook. So whatever plans you had before 2019 or in 2019, that was targeting 2025 and 2026, that plan would have failed drastically post-COVID, because COVID has even shown a grave change in how we interact with students. At first, everyone ought to have been in class and will be doing face-to-face. Indeed, even some universities did not recognize an online platform for teaching. If you go to a school and they were taught online, they used to behave as though it was something that was unaccredited. But now everyone is gone because of COVID-19. So, Poma says, uncertainties will come. So why do you sit down and draft when you don't know tomorrow? Nobody knows tomorrow. So wait, when tomorrow comes, then we'll be able to adjust our efforts. That's great. Last submission, why we know planning, your strategy is crucial, but people may elect not to do so.
Doug,
Yes, Anita.
can time wasting become an also a factor? Like
Yes.
a waste
Let
of.
me hear you.
I'm saying, what about it's a waste of time? As in the period in which you use to plan can be used for something else, or start the process, or
Yes, that's an important point you have stated. Thank you, Anita.
Okay, thank you.
Planning, yes, great. Planning requires time. Some people have planned to go to school since some 20 years ago. They are still planning. Some people have also planned to get married since some 15 years ago. They are still planning. Some people have planned to build a house, and since they are still planning, they have the architectural plan of the house, but it's not on land. It cannot be implemented. Planning takes a loathsome amount of time. And so some people just neglect it and they go into action. Damn the consequences. Whatever would come, we should be able to deal with it as we fly along. So yes, it takes time. All right. So now that we know strategic planning, and thank you all for your views on this. Another concept which you will be interested in is strategic change. And change is crucial. It's a crucial element in strategy. When you want to move to a higher level of performance, a business and persons, you'd want to engage in some change. And that change must be guided by strategy. You need to change to improve your lot. You don't change for just changing sake. So strategic change is as crucial in ensuring that the business who wishes to achieve higher heights put in measures to transform the fortunes of the organization. And that may even demand laying off workers. Or, in other respects, funding employees for further studies to become au fait or conversant with the new technologies that will be enrolled or will be rolled out later on in the life of the business. So it comes at a cost, but change is the only constant thing. And so you would have to bear that. Therefore, the change must be targeted at your vision and achieving the long-term objectives. You cannot just be changing. There are people who just change for changing sake. You cannot just be changing. I recall when I was quite younger, there was this lady I thought I liked. It turned out not to be true though. But at the time, today you buy chocolate, she's happy. Tomorrow, you bring the same chocolate, she's frowning. Today, you buy flowers. Oh, I love flowers. And hey, tomorrow, you bring flowers. Is it always flowers? Eh? One person with all these mood swings. I let her be. In fact, on the last days, I couldn't maintain it because the change was too drastic and so inconsistent. I couldn't help it. Same for businesses. You cannot just be changing rapidly for whatever cost. There's nothing. You are just changing. Change must be targeted and guided by the aims of the organization. Otherwise, your change may be in vain. Now, in changing, like I intimated, you can just reorganize some aspects of your business, and we call that restructuring. Just some aspects of the business so that it can remain competitive. So if it is the sales or the customer service section that is failing you, you want to touch it a bit, tweak it a bit. That's what we call restructuring. Otherwise, also, you can attempt to redesign the whole business model to improve performance. And then we say you're engaging in re-engineering. So when you touch an aspect, you tweak it a bit to perform well, we say you're restructuring. But when you want to design the overall processes and related systems in the organization, we say you are re-engineering. And again, when it comes to change as it relates to innovation, it's about ensuring that there's room for the creation of new ideas in the organization. Another term will become quite used to in this race of strategic management is continuous improvement. Look, you always need to improve your lot to stay competitive. It is only an unwise person who does the same thing so many times and expects the same results. Once a business wants to survive in the ages to come, then there must be always a chance at improving. And when you're a business that does not love improvements, then obviously you'll be out of the market in no time. Think of the Nokia phones. Nokia, where are they now? Nokia was the talk of the town some years ago. Where are they now? They've tried. Now, new companies like Apple, Microsoft, amongst others, have brought in soft platforms and the rest. And now Nokia is trying to catch up. But at that time, the bus is long gone. The bus has left the station. So a company needs to be improving always to ensure that they stay competitive. Such improvements must be incremental. And such improvements must ensure that there is value added. So today, you're selling wache. Today, the customer comes, you give some pepper. Tomorrow, the customer comes to the wache, you add some toffees. Tomorrow, the customer comes, you think of some toothpick. The customer comes now, beyond the wache, you're adding some drinks. Then perhaps you play some music. A lot more you can do to innovate incrementally to ensure that you reach your goal. The point here, the catch here is keep your eye on the ball, which is the long-term objectives, while you engage in this innovation. Again, let us recognize that once you engage in strategy management or strategic management at that, your goal is to compete. And by competition, you want to create value that is different or unique to what your other competitors are offering. And we'll see that in a jiffy, how you can create or what are the characteristics that your resources must have to be able to compete in the market. Not every resource can have a competitive value. There are some resources that are too common that cannot compete. But we'll see in a third what characteristics of resources are able to withstand competition. We'll do that in a jiffy. Okay. So having said that, now let's come to the part that is also crucial, and this is what you'll be writing a lot more in your exams. May I repeat that the leader of this course is a professor. And so he's well knowledgeable and versed in theories. I suggest to you, and this is my humble advice, that once you're in an examination setting and your goal is to write, to meet the impressions of the learned professor, you cannot do without theories. Because theories explain why things happen the way they do. So the reason why when you throw something up, it must always come down has been explained as the force or the law of gravity. And in doing so, it gives us a better understanding of how to react in the environment. Same for strategic management. These theories have explained the need for strategic management. So you cannot be in an exam situation and not stuck on these theories. So colleagues, I invite you to always put theories first. Seek ye first the kingdom of theories, and I should suppose that all other arguments, explanations will be added onto you. Don't come out of the exam hall without writing a theory. Now, this is how it plays out. The theories are conversations around strategic management. Why do we need strategic management? Let's start with the industrial organization theory, the IO theory. It states that corporations need to adapt to industry impacts. And because corporations need to adapt to industry impacts, they need to always be strategic. I'll take it again. The industry organizational theory posits that organizations need to survive and grow. And once they need to survive and grow, then that corporation must adapt to the impacts in the environment. So if you want a tool that supports your ability to adapt, that is strategic management. So the industry organizational theory is what cements or concretizes the view that we need strategic management, because things may come and your ability to overcome such things in the organization or in the environment is by virtue of you being strategic at planning. And that strategy is because you would want the corporation to adapt to all these changes. So a company that does not adapt will finally be left lagging. That is what this theory encompasses. Because we need to survive and grow, we need to adapt to changes. And because we need to adapt to changes, it's a firm, we need strategic management. The next theory that makes the point for us is the resource-based view theory. It also supports strategic management in this regard. Remember that strategic management is long-term focused. What the resource-based view theory is saying is that not every resource in the organization are competitive resource. And that organizations' ability to utilize resources is what sets them apart. But it's not every resource that is competitive. And that the resource-based view theory suggests that the resources that can be used to compete are resources that are having 4 distinct characteristics. And these 4 are: 1, they are valuable. That resource in the organization must be valuable. We'll explain it again later on. So this is just a tip of the iceberg. The resource must be valuable. That resource must be rare. Not everyone can get it. That resource must be difficult to duplicate. So inimitable. You cannot easily imitate it. And that resource must not have a lot of substitutes in the market. So before you can outcompete your competitors, and the reason we need strategic management is because we would have to compete with the resources we have. Now, in competing with the resources we have, the theory posits that the resources must be of some distinct characteristics, and that not all resources are needed or are able to withstand competition. What are the characteristics of these resources? They must be valuable, rare, inimitable, and cannot be easily substituted. Or some say organizable. We'll see it in our subsequent slides. So that is the resource-based use theory. And lastly, as it relates to theory in this section, it must be noted that the contingency theory also argues why we need strategic management. The view of the contingency theory is that the organization must be able to create advantageous matches with the environment, such that, and contingency means setting aside a buffer. So anytime the company is hit with an unforeseen circumstance, your best bet is that you fall on your strategic plan or your strategic map. When you do not plan for contingencies, your business will collapse. You need to plan for certainties and plan for uncertainties. And the contingency theory holds the view that the ability to plan for the dark days is what makes you stay in business. There are some businesses just with some small rainfall, they are out of market. Rainfall, they are out of market. That business cannot survive in the long term. We need real strong maps and muscle that can propel the business into the next stage. And that contingency theory posits will be the need for strategic management. All right. So having said that, we come to the end of our first discussion. Remember that in summary, we looked at strategic management, what it is, 3 pillars: formulation, implementation, and evaluation. We've looked at some other concepts there. And indeed, we finally settled on one of the key aspects, which is the theories. The industry organization theory, which posits that businesses must grow and therefore adapt to change, requiring the need for strategic management. We also looked at the resource-based view theory, posits that companies, organizations compete with their resources, and the resources must not be any resource at all. The resources must be rare, valuable, inimitable, and organizable, or should not have substitutes. Thirdly, the contingency theory, which is of the view that the business, once it's running, will face some uncertainties. Your ability to plan for these uncertainties is what will create advantageous means in the environment for you. On that note, we are done with the first part of our discussion. Are there any questions? Okay. If there are no questions, we would have, it's 12:30 now. We'll take a break and we'll come for the second part at 12:40. We'll meet at 12:40. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doc.
All right. Welcome back. We'll deal with the second part, which is purpose. Can I be heard loud and clear?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right, most grateful. So welcome back. Now, I intimated in our first discussion on the overview of strategic management that you need to formulate the strategy. You need to implement the strategy and evaluate the strategy. Those are the three pillars of strategic management. Now we are coming to break down what it means to formulate a strategy. If you would recall, we indicated that at the formulation stage, you are looking at your mission, vision, your external environment, internal environment, amongst others. So we are going to take these concepts one after the other and see what they are. We are starting, so we are at the formulation stage, just to be clear. The first thing is that in the formulation stage, you would want to focus on the purpose of the organization. What is the purpose of the organization? In our discussion, the purpose of the organization are in three folds: mission, vision, and values. These three things constitute the purpose of the organization. You kindly note that, because you've seen in time immemorial that when questions are asked about the purpose of the organization, people end up writing a lot of things that are really inaccurate. The purpose, which is definitive in our context as it relates to strategy formulation, is of three manifestations. First, the vision of the organization, the mission, and the values of the organization. We'll start off with the vision. What is the vision of the organization? A vision is just a desired future state where you want to be. That's all. Where you would want to be is your vision. Now remember that in this realm, the vision must be quite ambitious, but not overly ambitious, to the extent that it communicates a certain desire to aim high. At the vision stage, you are at liberty to write things or things that may be quite unattainable, but you think that in the course of time, you may be able to achieve it. It may take a long while, but you think that it is something that is challenging enough. Now, the thing is, in visions, you may not really achieve them. So, University of Cape Coast wishes to be the best university in the world as its vision. Can it be achieved? Well, we'll do our best. So, in crafting the vision of the organization, you are thinking of the pedestal that the organization should get to in terms of its future state, and let it be a bold statement. Don't be feeble about the vision because you have a mission. The vision should be broad. The mission can be narrowed, but the vision should be broad and should aim high. As I sit here, I wish to become the president of Ghana. That's my vision. I may or may not achieve it. Hopefully, I wish to. But anyhow, we can only try and get there. So the vision is an ambitious and bold statement that you make. It may not be attainable. SIC, as part of their vision, And it reads, I quote, SIT wishes to partner with you, our cherished clients and stakeholders, to become the dominant, trustworthy, and value-creating insurer in West Africa. That is SIC Insurance. Their vision is to become the dominant, trustworthy, and value-creating insurer in West Africa. Have they even achieved that in Ghana? Much West Africa? We do not know. But that's their vision. Can you fault them? Dream big in your vision. MTN wishes to lead the delivery of bold new digital world to customers. Has it gotten there yet? Well, your goal here is to dream big. GCB aspires to become Ghana's favorite bank and one of the most recognized and preferred financial service brands in Africa and beyond. Are they even good in Ghana? How about West Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa? How about Africa as an entity and beyond? So the vision is a space to dream big, and why not? Feel free to. Now, the mission statement, however, details what you exist to do. What is your core mandate? We have seen you establishing a business in our neighborhood. What is your mission? By that we mean, what activities are you coming to engage in to better the lot of the community people? You need to explain, or the mission explains why the organization exists. So if you're a car assembly plant, your goal is to assemble cars, is it not? Let's see. So whereas the vision seeks to answer what do we wish to become, the mission answers what our business is. As for the mission, please, it can be wide in scope, but it should not be too wide. It should include a lot of functional areas and diverse stakeholders. And it should not be too specific. Otherwise, always you need to augment your mission. So, for example, if you are selling wache, you say, my mission is to sell wache. That becomes too specific, because the next time you realize that, look, I can add rice because the people love rice in addition to the wache. You cannot add it because as part of your mission, you say that you are here to sell wache. But when you say you are here to sell lunch, good. You can add rice, banquet, and whatsoever. So it should not be overly specific, I should say. All right. Now there's a part of the conversation on mission statements that's beautiful. This slide is quite short. Then we move to the third part. So when it comes to the mission statement, and here's where you would come in. The goal is not to offer things, but to offer values. In drafting the mission, you don't offer things, you offer ideas, emotions, feelings, and benefits. Let's go through this and you see what I mean. So that then you can all form some businesses in your mind and tell me how you would craft your mission statements. So shall we? Look, it says, and I'll read through so that you get the concepts. Don't offer me things in the mission. Don't offer me things. Don't offer me clothes. If you are selling clothes, don't tell me we offer clothes. Offer me attractive looks. So just say our mission is to offer you attractive looks. That's better. Don't offer me shoes. Offer me comfort for my feet and the pleasure of walking. Can you imagine? Don't say our mission is to offer you a house. No, rather we offer you security, comfort, and a place that is clean and happy. Don't say we sell books. No, say we offer you hours of pleasure and the benefits of knowledge. Don't say we offer CDs, compact discs. But rather, you say we offer you leisure and the sound of music. Don't say we offer tools for sale. Rather say we offer the benefits and pleasure that come from making beautiful things. Don't say we sell chairs or furniture. Rather states that we offer you comfort and quietness of a cozy place. So the point is, don't offer me things in your mission statement. Don't offer things. Offer ideas. Offer emotions, ambience, feelings, and benefits. That's what attracts consumers. So please don't offer me things. Now, the question to you is, think of, in a minute, think of a thing. Okay, no. Should I mention the thing? Okay, you mention it yourself. I just need 2 observations here. You tell me the thing you are offering for sale and tell me how you craft the mission in a simple sentence. So who is coming? Who is coming? Let's do that quickly so that we get the idea of how to craft a mission. May I hear you respectfully? Yes, anyone at all? Who is coming? Let's do that quickly. Anyone, what are you offering for sale and how you craft it with your new knowledge you've had in crafting missions? Anyone who is coming? Oh, are you there? If you are there, please come in. Yes. About 9 on the page. Let's do that quickly. We are just taking 2 observations. No one is coming? Okay. Let's proceed. From there, we go to the value statements. Remember that I indicated that the purpose of the organization are in 3 folds. The vision, which is where you can dream big. The mission, which answers what you are set out to do. And the goal here is, do not offer things, offer values, ambience, feelings, emotions. The third thing under purpose is value statements or values. The norms that guide behavior. The norms that guide behavior. What values or standards do you stand by in the organization? In the law of fraternity, ours is truthfulness, eschew conflict of interest, always be tenacious. SIC has as part of its value statements excellence, integrity, professionalism, reliability, relationships. A lot of other firms have these values. In fact, when it comes to UCC, they also have their values. Chartered accountants, GS, teachers, and recall that all these statements are statements that are binding on each person who finds themselves in that profession. So on that note, this ends purpose under formulation. Remember that purpose entails 3 things. Purpose entails your vision, your mission, and your values. These three things must be present. Then we are clear in our minds that we are starting off formulating good strategies towards the attainment of long-term objectives. Thank you. Are there any questions? Then we break finally. Then we move to the final part. Any questions at all? Are there any questions? Okay.
No, sir.
All right. Most grateful. We'll go to our third presentation. It's now 12:55. We'll come back at 1:05. 1:05 to take our final parts. Thank you very much.
Please, have you break?
Hello. Hello. I think dock is off. Oh.
All right. So welcome back to the third and final part of our discussion. I hope I can be heard.
Yes, doc.
Most grateful. And so remember that our conversations center on strategic management. We've looked at the overview of strategic management. Indeed, we stated, amongst other things, that strategic management involves a careful flow of strategy formulation, strategy implementation, and strategy evaluation. And indeed, we recognized that the formulation stage includes the crafting of the mission and the vision and keeping an eye on the external and the internal environment. That said, we went ahead to look at some theories that underpin strategic management. Amongst them were the industrial organization theory, which talks about the adaptation to change by a business, stay competitive. We also looked at the resource-based view theory, which suggested that the resources must be of a particular kind to meet up the expectations of competition. Indeed, we had to carefully interrogate the contingency theory and stated that the planning must be such as would enable the business to sustain in times of eventualities. Having closed the chapter on that, we proceeded to the formulation stage where we are now. In our last lecture on purpose, we looked at what will constitute that in the realms of strategic management. The view we shared was that purpose connotes the crafting of the vision, the mission, and values, where mission, or I should say vision, probably so, vision entails the broader picture of where the company wishes to be. The mission answers the reason for the company's existence. And the guiding rule is that don't offer things, offer values, virtues, emotions, feelings, amongst others. And finally, we looked at values. What are the work ethics or the behavioral traits that the business wants to be known for? And we recall SIC states that it stands for professionalism, integrity, amongst others. Need I also say that in formulating strategy, your eye must be on the external environment. And there are tools that keeps your eye on the external environment by way of monitoring what happens in the external environment, because you do not live in a closed system. No man is an island. And in this context, every business operates in an environment. And that environment can be internal to it or external. Our focus on this chapter is to interrogate the external environment and see whether we can draw lessons from actors outside of the space to enable the organization strategize much more effectively. Now, in the external environment, who are those that reside in there? The external environment consists of a lot of things, including the conditions outside, the favorable nature of competition or otherwise. You have a lot of actors in the external environment, even including government. You need to monitor government and its steps, because a new king brings his own law, as it is rightly said, new king, new law. So if you do not monitor the waves very well, you start off a business and before long, it is shut down because of political actors. Did we not see some banks collapse during the time, sometime in our present history of a government? And for whatever reason, however justified or not, the business was collapsed. The banks, I should say. So the external environment is crucial. But what are some of the tools? Let's start with the first tool we call the pestle framework, or the pestle analysis tool. Pestle analysis tool has pestle as an acronym. So the P is political, economic, social, T is technological, environmental, and legal. So the political, econo-social, techno-environment, and legal environment or trend determines the pestle framework. How does it work out? Let's take it in seriatim. First, the political trends. When you have a government or a country whose governance is not based on rule of law, but rule by law, then it means that those at the top echelons of society are able to change the rules anytime. And there's no fairness within the region because they are ruling by law. Now, a country that does not obey the law would have a lot of difficulties having businesses planned in that country. Now, they are war-torn countries. Most businesses have fled that area because before long, there's a bomb on your head. But Ghana is peaceful, aren't we? And so there's an influx of a lot of investments. There are people who are monitoring the political environment to ensure that war does not happen in Ghana. There are people interested in that. Again, the economic trend. It is, or Dr. Baumia, it is, who said, if the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you. Doing business just last year and this year, in terms of the economic trend, has changed. Today, a dollar is trading for about 12 or 13 cedis, is it? Whereas just last year, in December, it was trading at about 17 cedis. You want to be sure, because that is going to affect your funds that you repatriate or funds that you use as your unit cost of production. So the economic trend is crucial. So personal analysis advice or admonishes us to set up to interrogate the mathematics, the figures, the economic trends. When in doing so, you are able to measure rightly the goals as it relates to the finances and the growth of the business. You do not grow in a vacuum. Again, social trends. Now everyone is online. So if you are starting off a business and the business has no linkage to the online space whatsoever, you are bound to fail because that is the order of the day. Lifestyles are changing. The demography is now Gen Z populated. And sometimes for some of us as old men, find it very difficult dealing with the Gen Zs. Because if you do not take care, you think that they are disrespectful, but that's their style. The style have changed. A child in this modern age can ask a parent in Ghana, why are you doing that to me? Or, I will not eat because you said I did not do my homework well, so I will not eat. In the past, you will not eat because your mother has reprimanded you. Hey, do you have that courage to tell your mom in the face you will not eat? You can't even attempt it because that will be the end of your eating on earth. But now they're able to tell you, Daddy, I hate you. If you say that in the past, I'm sure that you'll be given over to the gods to be dealt with. And so things have changed. What can you do? You can't stop it. They say that when you cannot defeat them, you join them. So you need to structure your business around that space. Otherwise, you lose out. Geert Hoftidi, a researcher it is, who undertook a research and found that countries in Africa do not easily shift in terms of their culture. And we'll look at that later on in the discussion. And so I'll leave it at that. But the point should be made that the culture of countries also affects the external environments of the business. So when you are selling alcohol and you go to a Muslim-dominated country, it will fail because they do not take alcohol. or they are not supposed to take alcohol, however the case may be. So the demographics and the culture and the ethics of the community is crucial in determining which factors affect the business. Technology, strictly tied with the social trends, also technological strengths. Here, there are new ways of doing things now. Today we have AI. AI can do just about everything, though it may tell a lot of lies, but it can do just about everything. The question we're asking ourselves is it coming to take over work that human beings are doing? But that's a technological trend we have now. If you don't use it, you waste your time unduly, because it's an easier and perhaps a more effective way of doing the work. So this trend also must come to your purview, so that when you are paying 10,000 cedis to hire a secretary in your organization, and today AI can sit in meetings and listen and bring out a minute, you don't consider whether hiring secretaries or you buy an AI tool. Then the environment. The environment, animal life and human life, is an ecosystem. Your concern must be on the environment. And that is why in our current space, what we see in our water bodies by activities of persons we call in Ghana as galamseyers is quite obnoxious. It's scary. They're killing us slowly. And so every business who is operating, when you are called upon to donate to stop galamsey, I'm sure that you should be interested. You cannot say that, oh, I'm a clothing and textile company, so I don't need to finance galamsey. But you drink water, you take your bath, you eat. All these things, when they're infested with mercury and cyanide, amongst other chemicals, I'm sure that will be the worst for it. So the concentration in the environment is key. Obviously, the legal environment, my specialty, is it not? When you go to Rome, you need to do what Romans do. So anytime you are in a country, you need to know their laws and their standards. Then you are able to act within the space so that you don't flout any law or do unlawful things. Because once you breach the law, you find for yourself bad publicity, and the media is ready to bring you out or call you out. So indeed, you must be very careful in ensuring that you obey all the rules there. That much is the legal trend. So the personal analysis sees that in the environment. So in an organization, you may have an individual who is monitoring social trends, an individual who is monitoring the political trend for the business. You need a lawyer, obviously, to monitor the legal trend. Engineers or software engineers are also looking at the technological bits so that the workspace become a complete whole. Like I said, I had the opportunity to consult to a company. I told them, look, these are some of the strictures you need. Otherwise, your business cannot formulate anything on paper for it to wash. If you want to formulate good ideas, you need people in charge who will be doing the personal analysis for you. And whereas they monitor, you are good to go. But personal is not the only tool. Another tool you can use is the black swan and structural break analysis. Now here, the black swan and structural break analysis deals with one or single events that cannot be foreseen. We call them black swans. They come once a while. So a business who is hit with COVID-19 has suffered a black swan. What preparations did you have for it? It is when you monitor the environment closely that you can take steps to situate or re-engineer your company to achieve desirable ends, though such inimical things may be in the market. For example, COVID-19 is called COVID-19 because it came in the year 2019. Which year did it get to Ghana? COVID-19. Which year?
2020.
Great, thank you. It got to Ghana in 2020. Now, if we had, or if a company has a serious black swan and structural break analysis, you should see from Wuhan, where it was first an epidemic, started spreading, and you see the travels here and there, there must have been clear indications to you in Sogakope, you in Achim Ebuakwa, you in Nairobi. There must be a clear indication to you that no, the thing is in China, Wuhan, but it could travel because we are in a close community. Little did we know, I was as far back as 2019, just observing it on CNN and BBC, thinking it is something that is afar off. Before long, then we had fellow Ghanaians. We realized we were finished in 2020, and it took away lives. God rest their soul. So the point is, you must have a black swan or structural break analysis to be able to solve this. You know, some things come in a rush, but that is fine. But your ability to have or be on top of the game in this regard is relevant in ensuring that your business outcompetes. So in the external environment, beyond personal analysis, you can do your black swan analysis to cater for single events that may be unforeseen. Again, another tool you would use or you can use in monitoring the external environment is the industry life cycle. Every business has its life, like human beings. There's a time to live and there's a time indeed to resurrect or die, if I should say. Same for businesses. They start from the introductory stage through to the growth stage, they mature and they decline. If business has this, except that depending on the kind of analysis you do, you can remain at the maturity stage for a long while. There are companies that are mature, like Guinness, Ghana, even they mature for a long while, and they are still not declining. There are companies that can stay at maturity for a long while. But the point that must be made is that depending on the life cycle of the organization, you want to be sure which of the external environment factors will affect you. If you're at the introductory stage, then you need to put in some measures so that you don't go in to show yourself out there too much for the big players to clamp down on you, like MTND to grow. If you're at the declining stage, what efforts do you put in to bring back your business into motion? And we'll look at that during the tail end of our conversation. But by and large, the industry life cycle tells an indication to the organization. Now remember that the industry differs from the company. Industry is a group of firms acting within a common purpose for a specific market that is known. Now, it may be that the industry in itself is new, like the oil and gas industry in Ghana is barely 10 years, or is it 12 years? Or it's not even, because 2000. So you may say that maybe 12 years or 13 years. But it's still young as compared to countries that have engaged in oil production for decades and centuries. Comparatively, Ghana is a young person. So Ghana is in an industry when it comes to oil and gas space, which is fairly new. So the kind of competition that is required in an industry that is fairly new will differ from that which is required when the business or the industry, the firms in that business matures. So you have to be very careful in advising. Now again, another tool to monitor So beyond personal analysis, the black swan analysis, the industry life cycle analysis is also what Michael Porter describes as the competitive force, or the 5 competitive forces. You want to also be sure that as an organization, are there rivals? Do you have rivals? As an organization, are there rivals? Is there a company producing what you are producing? If yes, then you have to be a notch ahead. Is there a way that if there are no existing competitors, they can easily enter? You want to be sure how customers are in that market. Are they too knowing? Are they strong in terms of bargaining power, or they cannot bargain? Or suppliers that are strong? In the oil and gas company, suppliers are strong. In the retail market, customers are strong. So you need to know which of the markets you are in, so that a better alternative is proffered. The threat of substitute products and services. You'd want to know. And there's an advert on TV that makes the point for us. Is it Kodak? Is it Procode or something? There's an advert that speaks to the fact that when you are buying Procode, you need to insist that it is Procode from Kodak. I may be mistaken. Forgive me if I am. But as many of you guys have seen that advert, it points to the fact that if there can be substitute products, then you need to be careful, because you spend your whole time coming out with a product and another company just imitates that product. So you want to be careful. And Michael Porter tells us that look fairly on these points. Let someone in the organization be in charge of this analysis so that you are well informed. All right. Again, let us note that in the environment also, as we indicate that there will be competition, there are some industries that face hyper competition. To them, every time there's a change in the equilibrium, every time something else is coming. Imagine the telecommunication industry, MTN. Before long, they are doing mobile money. Before long, they are doing this. Before long, they are aiding in business advisory and all of that. So you want to be minded that if there is a hyper competition in your environment, how do you act in a way that would sustain you in the market? Because the market is ever changing. Michael Porter says, look to the forces, the 5 key forces. Finally, when you do all your analysis, remember we are strategy formulation. When you do all your analysis in the external environment, then now you want to ask yourself, how does all these lessons I've garnered fit into my organization's plan? That's what we call strategic fits. Now you've gone outside, you've seen the challenges and you've seen the opportunities. How do you map up a strategy that would inure to the benefits of the organization? So remember that at the end of the day, the monitoring of the external environment is towards ensuring that the business is given on its table the challenges in the external environment and the opportunities in the external environment for the organization to pick and choose how and which of these things they can follow. So somehow you go out there, you see that the competitors are barely doing enough in terms of your product. They cannot imitate it. The product is something that is valuable, like Apple and Samsung. Then it means that when you come back, you take the lessons and inculcate such lessons into your internal capabilities. Remember, the goal of monitoring the external environment is towards strategic fits. What it therefore means is that it's not everything in the external environment that you are going to implement hook, line, and sinker. You have to sieve out that which is recognized or required in your organization for you to benefit from the kind of analysis you have done. So on that note, this ends the external environment as it relates to strategy formulation. Remember that today we looked at strategy in its overview. We say that it constitutes the formulation, the implementation, and the evaluation stage. The formulation stage is what we have since looked at, which is the purpose. The purpose constitutes the mission, the vision, and the values. And also in formulation, you need to monitor the external environment and the internal. We've seen some of the tools we use in monitoring the external environment, including the Potter's 5-force model, the pestle analysis, the industry life cycle, black swan analysis, amongst others. When we meet next week, God willing, we should be looking at how to keep our eyes on the internal environment to ensure that the business stays in ready competition. On that note, are there questions to ask? Otherwise, we call it a Sunday. Any questions, contributions, or comments? Colleagues, any? Any at all?
No, say.
All right. And I wish you a happy Sunday. We'll meet next week if God grants us life. Have a good time. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Doc.
So